Lil Scrappy's assistant just revealed the messy truth about his fame, and believe me, it's bad. For years, Scrappy had his fans fooled, but now the truth is out. And it's worse than we ever imagined. In a shocking revelation, his former assistant is revealing everything from the dark secrets he never wanted the world to know, to the way he used and manipulated people behind the scenes. Believe me, what she revealed has left fans stunned. What really happened? What secrets has Scrappy been keeping? Why is his assistant speaking out? Stay locked in, because we're uncovering every detail. Shocking detail of this Hollywood scandal right now. For years, Lil Scrappy's fans saw him as the charismatic rapper, reality TV star, and family man. But behind the cameras and behind the fame, there was a side of him that was never supposed to be seen. Now his own assistant, Nick Kayla, has destroyed that illusion. She was Scrappy's shadow, working tirelessly behind the scenes to handle his schedule, bookings, dirty work, and even personal drama. In return, she received nothing but pain, betrayal, and broken promises. I gave Scrappy everything I had, my time, my loyalty, my energy, and what did I get in return? Lies, manipulation. And the worst part is that he knew exactly what he was doing the entire time. This isn't just another celebrity scandal. It's the unvarnished truth that reveals what truly goes on behind closed doors in the industry, and trust me, this story is darker than anyone could have imagined. Kayla claims it all began innocently enough. She was hired as Scrappy's assistant through a mutual connection, and at first, everything seemed fine. Scrappy was charming, laid back, and made her feel like she was a part of his inner circle, but she didn't realize she wasn't being welcomed into his world. Instead, she was being trapped. Managing iCal assistant duties, setting up interviews, planning Scrappy's travel, and ensuring his life remained on course. But things quickly became strange. It began with him asking me to do small things that didn't feel right, like lying to people about him, hiding things from the media, and even making excuses to his wife and family. I kept telling myself that it was part of the job, but I knew something wasn't right. One of the first warning signs was Scrappy's financial difficulties. Despite his ostentatious lifestyle, which included expensive vacations, luxury cars, and designer clothes, Scrappy's finances were in disarray, and he wasn't paying people on time. Kayla claims she frequently had to deal with irate bosses, promoters, and even friends who were fed up with being turned away. One night, Kaya remembers, Scrappy called me at 2 a.m. and asked her to handle a particularly awkward scenario. Telling me to fix it. It turned out that he owed this promoter a lot of money, and the guy was threatening to go public. Scrappy told me to basically make up an excuse to lie, which I did because, in retrospect, I still think I was protecting him. However, the mind game began when Scrappy first gave Kayla praise. He told her repeatedly that she was the only person he could trust, and the only person who truly understood him. But the moment she questioned something or pushed back, his attitude changed. One minute he was telling me that I was like family, and the next he was ignoring my calls and making me feel like I was replaceable. It was a never-ending cycle of him drawing me in and pushing me away, and I was unaware at the time that he was manipulating me. The real tipping point came when Kayla saw something she was not supposed to see. Scrappy had always talked about loyalty, being a real one, and always having his people's backs. But one night, there were nights when Scrappy would come home after drinking, and his temper would already be out of control. I never knew what would set him off. It was like walking on eggshells. She realized that none of it was true. She was in the studio late one night when she overheard Scrappy No one should have to go through that, especially not in the name of loyalty. The tension in the room was unbearable. She said softly, "I know he didn't mean to hurt me, but when he was drunk, it was like he became someone else, someone I didn't recognize." A murmur went around the room as some of the cast members tried to make sense of the revelation, while others stared at her with a mixture of shock and sympathy. For her, this was the reality she had endured for years, one that she had endured in silence. As she continued to speak, I kept telling myself that it would stop, that he would change, and that it was just the alcohol. But it continued to happen. Her voice faltered, but she persisted. For a long time, I blamed myself, thinking that maybe I had done something wrong or that I had triggered him. But now I know that it wasn't my fault, and I won't be silent any longer. The truth of what she was saying was unquestionable. It wasn't about reality TV or scripted drama, but rather about abuse. The room, which had once been filled with pre-show excitement and casual conversation, felt oppressively still. Some people avoided her, while others had tears in their eyes. Scrappy wasn't present, but his presence, or rather, the weight of the... When someone finally asked, "Did you ever tell anyone?" she shook her head. "No, I was scared. I didn't want to ruin his career. I didn't want people to turn against him, but I couldn't keep protecting him at my own expense at that moment." For a long time, accusations against him were felt in every corner of the room, and no one spoke or moved. The silence in the room was oppressive. No one spoke or moved, as if time itself had stopped the weight of the assistants. The air in the studio, which had once been filled with the usual energy of a love and hip-hop filming day, was now thick with tension as one of the producers finally broke the silence. "Are you saying Scrappy was physically abusive?" hung in the air heavy, and the assistant swallowed hard to escape. "Yes," she said, her voice no longer trembling. It was steady now, firm with a conviction of. A voice asked from the back of the room, "Does anyone else know?" The assistant hesitated before responding, and some people suspected she admitted they saw how he acted when he was drunk, how his temper flared up over nothing, but no one ever asked, and I never told. Some people looked away, uncomfortable with the revelation, while others stared at her, their expressions a mix of shock, sympathy, and disbelief. I was the one who paid the price. We've all seen Scrappy get angry. He's always had a temper. But this time, she paused, looking directly at the assistant, asking why she was speaking out now. The assistant didn't flinch because I can't keep living in fear, because it wasn't just one night that happened more than once. And because I know I'm not the only one. I took a deep breath and lashed around the room, protecting him for years. I told myself he was under stress. I made excuses for him. But the truth is that I was afraid, and I didn't want to be the reason his career was ruined. The producer said, "You're saying there were others." The assistant hesitated, as if deciding how much to reveal. But she admitted that I don't know for sure. I know that I wasn't the only one who saw his anger, but I also know that I wasn't the only one who was afraid of what he might do when he lost control. The weight of her words settled over the room like a dark cloud, and some of the cast members looked at each other, their expressions unintelligible. Then another voice finally asked, and the assistant exhaled as if she had been waiting for this question. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I know that I'm done being silent." As the uncharacteristically subdued, the cast members usually quit to jump into heated discussions after realizing what had just happened. This wasn't just another reality TV scandal. This was something deeper and more real. Then, for the first time since the assistant had spoken, the door to the set opened, and Lil Scrappy entered. His presence alone was enough to send a ripple of unease through the group. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't joking. He looked serious. More serious than anyone had seen him before. His eyes scanned the room before settling on the assistant. "I heard what you said," and he finally spoke in a calm but emotional voice. "I need to talk to you." The assistant looked at him, and her expression was unreadable. There was nothing more to say about Scrappy. So I said what I needed to say, and he shook his head. "You said a lot," but he didn't say everything, and now that everyone was holding their breath, no one could turn away from Scrappy. He took a step closer, his voice lower. "And now you know that I never meant to hurt you." It was a wake-up call because too often, abuse in the entertainment industry is concealed behind the glamour and ignored until it becomes too big to be swept under the rug. The weight of the moment was suffocating, and the assistant had spoken her truth, exposing a reality hidden beneath the glitz and glamour of the entertainment industry. The room was frozen in anticipation as Scrappy said something no one expected. "I need to tell my side of the story." This was a turning point that affected not only Scrappy and his assistant, but also the entire cast and crew of Love and Hip Hop. "I must share my side of the story." Scrappy repeated his voice in a more measured and lower tone, and the assistant stared at him with an expression that was unreadable from your side. Her tone was a mixture of disbelief and exhaustion. Scrappy exhaled sharply and rubbed his face. You may think that I don't know that his voice faltered a little, but he paused to find the right words. "I never meant to hurt you like that," murmured. "Every time I told myself that it wouldn't happen again and that it would be better if you changed." Scrappy closed his eyes for a moment and took a deep breath. When he opened them, he looked directly at her. "I was an inebriated man who was out of control, trying to make excuses. But I was going through a lot of pressure and expectations." The assistant shook her head, which made me think. We all go through things, Scrappy, but not everyone takes their pain out on the people closest to them. A few heads in the room nodded silently, and for a moment, Scrappy's jaw tightened, as if he might lash out. But then something changed his expression, causing his shoulder to slump slightly. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, almost broken. "I don't even recognize that version of myself," he admitted, "but I can't change the past. All I can do is own up to it." The assistant examined him closely, as if to see if his words were sincere, and then publicly challenged him. When Scrappy's eyes widened a little, he said, "You want me to go on camera and say it?" She nodded. "You built your career in the public eye. You did this in the dark, but I had to live with it every day. If you really mean what you're saying, then be accountable and let people see the real you, the good and the bad." For a long moment, Scrappy said nothing. The tension in the room was unbearable, but then he gave a slow nod. "I'll do it," he said, because this wasn't the usual reality TV drama. "You serious?" the assistant asked, still skeptical. "You're serious?" During the next few days, Scrappy sat down for an exclusive interview where he acknowledged his past mistakes and expressed deep regret for his actions. He admitted that alcohol had fueled his worst behavior and that he had hurt people he loved in ways he could never take back. Some fans supported him, praising his honesty and willingness to take responsibility, while others weren't convinced, calling it a calculated move to save his career. "Got to face this," the assistant said quietly, and the tightness in her shoulders slightly relaxed. For the assistant, she decided to leave the spotlight in order to finally heal after years of bearing the burden of silence. If anything, she hoped that her story would inspire others who had endured silence by letting them know they weren't alone. However, for Scrappy, the road to redemption was just getting started. Would he actually change, or would he revert to his old habits? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the truth was out, and there was no going back. If this story resonated with you, if you know someone who is experiencing abuse, know that you are not alone. Is out there, your voice matters, and like the assistant, you deserve to be heard. Let's continue the conversation. What do you think of Scrappy's response? Do you think that actions speak louder than words? Or do you think that sometimes the truth is hidden by fame, but eventually comes to light?